Welcome to the deep dive. If you're looking for that shortcut to being well-informed or maybe just, craving that aha moment about how the business world really works,
then you're definitely in the right place.
absolutely. Today, we are taking a deep dive into a really powerful strategic framework. It's called Porter's 5 Forces Model.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just like abstract theory, right? Our sources show how it's super practical. A real-world lens for understanding industry structure.
Yeah, identifying those competitive sweet spots.
And even appraising a business's actual performance.
That's exactly right. Our mission today really is to unpack this model, help you see past the surface,
See the underlying mechanics.
Precisely. Identify the real sources of competition in pretty much any industry or sector. We'll get into how it helps assess market attractiveness.
Meaning, basically, can it make money long-term?
That's the core of it, yeah. Its ability to generate profits. And our sources, they offer a really concise overview, covers the ideas behind it, but also the hands-on application.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Porter's 5 Forces Model. When he came up with it, what was the sort of core problem he was trying to figure out about industries? What is it exactly?
Well, at its heart, its purpose is just that. Identify those lasting sources of competition.
Okay.
And gauge how attractive a market really is overall. Now, it does share some ground with other tools, like pest analysis.
Right, I've heard of that. Environmental factors.
Yeah, but Porter's model dives much, much deeper into the competitive side of things. And a really crucial point our sources make
Go on.
is that you should always use this model at the level of the strategic business unit, the SBU.
Not the whole company.
Right, not trying to apply it to some huge, sprawling organization.
And why that distinction? Applying it to the SBU, that specific part with its own market. Why is that so critical?
Because, well, think about it. Competitive forces hit different SBUs in completely different ways.
Makes sense.
You might have a diverse company, right? One SBU makes, say, airplane parts, and another one sells soft drinks. The competitive landscape for those two, worlds apart, fundamentally different.
Yeah, completely different pressures.
Exactly. So analyzing at the SBU level makes sure you're getting a true picture, the real pressures on that specific product line or service.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've zeroed in on the SBU. What are these 5 key areas then? The forces Porter identified.
Right, the 5 forces. First, there's the threat of new entrants.
New companies trying to get in?
Yep. Then the bargaining power of buyers.
Your customers.
Exactly. Third, the bargaining power of suppliers.
The folks you buy from.
Fourth is the threat of substitute products or services.
Something else doing the same job.
Or even making the job unnecessary, yeah. And finally, number 5, the intensity of competitive rivalry.
How fierce the fight is among the existing players.
You got it. And what's really powerful here isn't just listing them off,
It's how they interact.
That's it. Their interaction often creates an industry's entire profit potential. Or sometimes, well, the complete lack of it.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Let's start with that first one, the threat of new entrants. What makes it so tough for new companies to just, jump into a market and start competing?
Well, it mostly boils down to what we call barriers to entry.
Hurdles they have to overcome.
Exactly. Formidable obstacles. And one of our sources points out something interesting. These barriers often just delay entry.
Rather than stopping it completely.
Right. But they can certainly make it a very costly, very uphill battle.
So what are some typical barriers?
Okay, well, a big one is economies of scale. Think industries like cars or chemicals. Huge upfront investments in fixed costs.
Factories, machinery.
Right. Volume manufacturing means much lower unit costs. So a new entrant. They start with a big cost disadvantage unless they can somehow operate at a massive scale right away.
Which is unlikely.
Very unlikely. And it's not just the machines, it's that constant pressure for volume. New players often just burn through cash trying to catch up.
Leading to spectacular failures sometimes.
Absolutely, which ironically just entrenches the existing giants even more. Then there's capital intensity and R&D.
Needing deep pockets.
Or extensive research and development. These industries deter pretty much everyone except the largest new companies. If you don't have the cash or access to it, it's tough.
Okay, what else?
Control over supply and distribution channels. This is huge.
How so?
Established firms might own these channels outright. That's vertical integration. Or they just have strong, long-standing loyalty from suppliers or retailers.
So a new product might struggle just to get on the shelf.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting shelf space or floor space can be a real battle, and that ties into supplier and customer loyalty itself.
People sticking with who they know.
Right. An established player with deep industry knowledge and close links.
Yeah.
It makes it very hard for a newcomer to gain any traction.
Makes sense. Are there other cost issues?
Yeah, cost disadvantages independent of scale. This is interesting.
Like what?
Maybe the existing company has proprietary tech that's just better, or valuable personal contacts, favorable locations.
Or they're just better at doing things from experience.
That's the learning curve effect, yeah. They might also have better access to raw materials, maybe even government subsidies.
Wow, okay.
And sometimes actively try to prevent entry or just make the costs totally prohibitive.
Playing a hardball.
Definitely. Plus, you have government regulation that can create protective walls, maybe preventing competition with state-owned industries.
Or just complex rules.
Yeah, rules that new firms, especially if they're not local, really struggle with. And of course, patents and copyrights offer legal protection too.
Okay.
One more. Lastly, differentiated products and services. If existing companies offer something perceived as higher value price, quality, brand image, features, exclusivity.
That makes it harder for a Me Too product.
Exactly. Though it's worth saying, differentiation can be eroded over time. Imitation happens.
So, lots of hurdles for newcomers. But even if you get past those, the fight's not over. Often it's dictated by the buyers. So when do customers hold all the cards? Let's shift to bargaining power of buyers.
Right. Buyer power tends to be high in a few key situations. For instance, if there are few large players in a market.
Like the supermarket example you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Those massive chains can put incredible pressure on small, undifferentiated suppliers. Think small farms trying to negotiate. The supermarkets can just pick and choose.
Because the supplier needs them more than they need the supplier.
Pretty much. Another factor, low cost of switching suppliers. If it's easy and cheap for a buyer to just swap, say, from one trucking company to another.
They have more leverage.
They do. Also, think about if the buyer's product isn't significantly affected by the supplier's quality.
Give me an example.
Okay, like a paper towel maker. They need those cardboard tubes in the middle, right?
Sure.
But are they overly concerned about the premium quality of that spiral wound paper tube? Probably not. So they can squeeze the tube supplier on price.
Right. The core product, the paper towel, isn't really impacted.
Exactly. And if buyers themselves earn low profits, they're going to be highly motivated to negotiate harder for lower prices from their suppliers. It helps their own bottom line.
Makes sense. Survival instinct?
Then there's the potential for backward integration.
Meaning the buyer becomes the supplier.
Yeah, the buyer might just decide, hey, we could buy the supplier, or even set up their own operation to compete directly with them. That threat gives them power.
Okay. Anything else for buyer power?
One last big one. Well-informed buyers. If buyers have all the information about supply, availability, costs, they can use that knowledge as huge leverage in negotiations.
Knowledge is power, literally here.
Right.
Okay, so buyers can be powerful. What about the flip side? The folks supplying the goods. When do they have the upper hand? That's the bargaining power of suppliers.
Right. And supplier power tends to be high when it's basically the reverse of what gives buyers power.
Okay.
For instance, if a supplier has a large number of customers, they're less reliant on any single one.
So losing one customer isn't a big deal.
Exactly. It's like a really popular restaurant with a queue outside. They're not too worried if one table decides to leave.
Got it.
Also, high switching costs for the buyer. This massively increases supplier power.
Like changing your core software.
Perfect example. It can be incredibly expensive and disruptive. Equipment might need changing, processes rebuilt, all tied to that one supplier. So you're kind of locked in.
Which gives the software company leverage.
A lot of leverage. Also, a powerful or well-known brand.
Yeah.
Think Apple, Mercedes, maybe McDonald's, Microsoft.
Big names.
Retailers often feel they need those brands. They need them in their store or product range to attract customers. That gives the brand owner, the supplier, power.
So brand strength isn't just marketing fluff. It's real negotiating power.
Absolutely fundamental leverage. Then there's the possibility of forward integration.
The supplier buying the customer.
Yeah, exactly. Like a brewery buying up pubs or restaurants.
Controlling the route to the end consumer.
Or maybe a chip maker acquiring a company that makes devices using those chips. And finally, if customers are fragmented, lots of small individual buyers.
Like drivers at a remote petrol station.
Perfect example. Those individual customers have very little bargaining power on their own. The supplier holds most of the cards.
Okay. Now this next one, always fascinating and maybe a bit scary if you're an established player. The threat of substitute products. What happens when something totally different can do the same job, or it maybe makes the original need just vanish?
Yeah, the threat of substitutes. It's higher in a few scenarios. First, you've got direct product-for-product substitution.
Like email replacing letters.
That's a classic example our sources use. Email and fax versus traditional postal services. Different products, different methods, but achieving the same basic task, delivering a message. They compete directly.
Okay, direct substitution. What else?
Then there's something potentially more profound, often more disruptive, the substitution of need.
Where the need itself goes away.
Exactly. Technological advances or just better products reduce the reason you needed something else in the first place. Think about high-quality washing machines.
Less need for repairs.
Dramatically less need for maintenance and repair services. Or our sources mention the IT revolution. How much did that diminish the need for old-school printing and secretarial services?
A huge amount.
Huge. And finally, there's generic substitution. This is where different kinds of products compete for the same chunk of disposable income.
Like deciding between a new carpet or new hardwood floors.
That's a great example. Carpet manufacturers competing with flooring manufacturers, both cover floors, totally different products, but vying for the same customer budget.
Right. Okay, so we've looked at who can get in, the power dynamics with buyers and suppliers, and the threat from substitutes, which brings us right to the heart of it. How fierce is the fight among the companies already in the ring? Let's talk competitive rivalry.
Right, and competitive rivalry is likely to be really high under certain conditions. First, if you have a number of equally balanced competitors of similar size.
Everyone's roughly the same strength.
Yeah, and they're all striving for dominance. That naturally cranks up the competition.
Makes sense.
Also, if the rate of market growth is slow, think mature markets. There aren't many new customers coming in.
So growth means stealing from rivals.
Exactly. Market share has to be gained at competitors' expense. It becomes a zero-sum game, which is often brutal.
I can imagine.
Another big driver, a lack of differentiation. If everyone's products or services are basically the same,
Customers just pick the cheapest.
pretty much, there's little reason not to switch. And that leads directly to price wars. Nasty ones.
Okay. What else fuels rivalry?
High fixed costs. If the industry needs massive upfront investments, like we talked about with barriers to entry,
That pressure to cover costs again.
right, it can trigger price wars just to keep volume up and cover those costs, leading to razor-thin margins. And also, if adding capacity requires huge, expensive jumps.
Like building a whole new factory.
Yeah. Someone eventually makes that leap, builds the factory, and suddenly there's way too much capacity in the short term. Everyone fights desperately to fill it.
Flooding the market.
Exactly. And finally, high exit barriers. This is when firms are unwilling or unable to leave the market.
Why would that happen?
Maybe they have specialized assets they can't sell easily, or huge shutdown costs. Sometimes it's even emotional ties.
So they're stuck.
Effectively, yeah, they're locked in. And that leads to persistent excess capacity, which just fuels more intense competition as these firms hang on, maybe even bleeding profits rather than cutting their losses and leaving.
Wow. Okay. So we've really unpacked these 5 forces, but the real magic, the aha moment for you, the listener, has got to be in applying this. How do you actually use this model in the real world to, get an edge?
Well, in summary, just applying the model seriously increases management's understanding, whether they're thinking of entering an industry or just assessing the one they're already in.
Moves them beyond just gut feelings.
Absolutely. Towards more data-driven insights about the industrial environment.
So when you're doing a 5 forces assessment, what are the key things to think about?
Good question. You need to consider, well, first, how do you actually measure the strength of each force? And how reliable are those measurements?
Okay, measurement. What else?
Then, how do you manage the forces you've identified? What steps can you take to maybe lessen their negative influence on your future performance?
So taking action based on the analysis.
Exactly. And finally, what specific performance measures do you need to put in place to monitor these forces over time? Are they getting stronger, weaker?
Keeping track.
Right. And these factors, by the way, are often the core of the kind of complex strategic questions you get where you need to apply this model.
Let's make this really tangible. Can we use that Scarlet Pillock example from our sources? The company making specialized chips for autonomous vehicles.
Sure. Scarlet Pillock, specialized SBU, making semiconductors, microchips for the autonomous vehicle industry.
Okay, so how would we assess the threat of new entrants for Scarlett, applying the model?
Right. For Scarlett Pollock, the threat of new entrants is actually probably quite high, despite the barriers.
Really? Why high?
Well, yes, there are huge upfront investments needed. Significant technical expertise in this very specialized semiconductor market. That's true.
Those sound like strong barriers.
They are, but crucially, you also need to cultivate really strong established relationships with the autonomous car makers, with the control systems manufacturers. Those are Scarlett's key customers.
So it's not just tech and money, it's relationships too.
Exactly. And building those takes time and effort, creating another barrier. But the potential profit in this growing market attracts attention. So while the barriers are substantial, the lure is strong, keeping the threat level quite high.
Okay, high threat of new entrants. Now, what about Scarlett's buyers, these big autonomous car companies? They sound powerful, few, large, probably very informed.
Oh, absolutely. That screams high buyer power, doesn't it?
It does. So what does that mean for Scarlett?
It means immense leverage for the buyers. Scarlett would likely face constant pressure on their pricing. Constant demands for customization, specific features.
Squeezing their margins.
Potentially, yes. It suggests Scarlett really needs a super strong value proposition. Maybe superior tech, maybe rock-solid reliability. Something to justify their position against such powerful customers.
Okay, so we have high threat of new entrants, strong buyer power. Given that analysis, what kind of performance measures should Scarlett track? Specifically thinking about that threat of new entrants.
Right, a suitable measure there. Well, percentage growth in revenue would be key.
Their own revenue growth.
Yes, but critically compared to the overall industry growth rate. As the autonomous vehicle sector grows, Scarlett should see its revenues grow. New contracts, new customers.
Makes sense.
But they need to benchmark that. Are they keeping pace with the industry? Are they keeping pace with competitors, especially any aggressive newcomers? If their growth lags behind the market, that's a warning sign.
That new entrants might be grabbing share.
Exactly. What else could they measure?
Well, our sources mention a few others. You could look at the ratio of fixed cost to total cost.
How would that help? It's a direct measure of that capital intensity barrier we talked about. How much capital is needed just to play in this game?
Okay, good one.
Or even customer loyalty. Maybe measure it through, say, the length of their long-term supply contracts with the manufacturers. Are they locking customers in?
Interesting.
But the main thing, as our source really highlights, is finding a measure that's genuinely useful and justified for this specific company, Scarlett, in this particular industry. It needs to help them monitor the forces that truly matter to them.
And there you have it. The enduring power, really, of Porter's 5 forces model. It just provides such a clear, structured way to look at competitive landscapes.
Yeah, the fundamental attractiveness or lack of it in any market.
It's like having, I don't know, X-ray vision for profitability.
That's a good way to put it. It's just invaluable for strategic thinking. Doesn't matter if you're an accountant looking at performance and investor scouting opportunities.
Or just curious.
Or just curious about why some industries thrive and others just seem to struggle constantly. It helps make sense of it all.
Which actually raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? Something for you, the listener, to think about.
Go on.
How might understanding these forces not just help you analyze a market, but maybe, just maybe, help you actually shape one?
Ooh, interesting. Like creating new competitive advantages, even in an industry that seems totally defined.
Exactly. Could understanding the forces let you change the game?
That's a great question to ponder, a real strategic challenge.
Definitely something to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. Join us next time, though, because we'll be turning our focus to another really powerful framework. This one helps companies think strategically about their product portfolios.
You mean the Boston Consulting Group Matrix? BCG?
That's the one, the BCG matrix.
Yeah.
So until then, keep exploring, keep learning.
And keep digging deeper into the world around you.